All right, I'm with Clayton Fisher, CEO of IDEX Metals. IDEX is the symbol on the TSX Venture. Good morning. How are you, Clayton?
I'm doing well, Robert. How are you?
I'm excellent. So I'm excited for this conversation because IDEX is a new public company, and I'm really excited about IDEX in this area of Idaho. So, first question, Clayton, tell us about IDEX. How did the company come about? And you guys were one of the first companies that moved into this area of Western Idaho.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, Robert. This is great, and excited to dig in a little bit more. IDEX started, call it 4 years ago, with the idea to, Idaho is a very underexplored region within North America, and we were searching around for, what could be the next prospective idea. We ended up in Idaho just for the simple fact that, there hasn't been a lot of development over the years. We kind of have a joke internally that, the geology doesn't stop at the British Columbia border and pick up again in Nevada. It runs right through there, and there's this big wide open state that is very underexplored. So we started doing the initial work, just exploring historical reports and going through databases, talking to ranchers, talking to some of the old timers. And it brought us down there for the simple fact that, a lot of these really interesting reports and compelling historical reports that we were reading were, the ground was wide open. So we raised the initial capital of money, the seed round, in 2021, and then we went out and staked probably 3 or 4 targets, anywhere from 100 to 1,000 acres, and then we just started building the portfolio from there, and just kind of systematic, prospecting, boots on the ground, picking up rock samples, sending to the lab, seeing what results come back, and if there were compelling results, we go back out, increases the claim package, and then do more work. And we just kind of worked our way through exploring our claims that way and building the claim package. So, we started out with, 2 or 3 projects over a few thousand acres, where today, we're 15 projects over 46,000 acres. And, there's a lot of kind of satellite projects we don't talk about, but we, with the idea that Idaho at some point will really come around, and we wanted to be ready. So, then, fast forward to 2023, Hercules makes a discovery, and we just so happened to have some ground a little bit to the northeast of them. So that was really exciting. That staking rush, one of the biggest staking rushes that has occurred in the United States in 40 years or so. And we were ready to go. So as soon as we saw that discovery, we knew it was coming. We got ready, started staking more ground around our initial Forest Service claims. And then, as you mentioned, we applied for a lease on the Idaho State claim package right immediately east of us. And so we initially applied for 4,200 acres or so. And then, a whole slew of other groups got involved. Applications were going crazy at the IDL. And, the IDL was very inundated with these requests. So to working through the lease and who to award it to, and the auction process took about a year. And then so come full circle, November 2024, it went to auction. Myself, I showed up, and we were lucky enough to win the bid. So that was really exciting. And, we bolted on 28,000 acres or so to now that freeze package is just over 31,000 acres. And is now our flagship project. And, we've been working on it now for the past 2 years. But really, I mean, it came down to, there were, as some erosional windows in this system. And the freeze claim package had one of those erosional windows along with Hercules and Scout. So that's what brought us to the area. We locked it up, and then we've been doing a lot of work ever since. And, initial work was focused on the freeze claim package. But now we're intensifying that focus on the Kismet side of things, or on the state side of things, at the Kismet Target, which we'll get into later, I'm sure. And that's kind of how it all came about.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot jammed into a few minutes there. I appreciate that background. So
no worries.
I definitely want to delve more into the Kismet Target, the Cuddy Mine targets, the freeze property more generally. But first, I want to talk about you. So tell us about your background. How did you get into the junior mining industry, and what prompted you to raise your hand to be the CEO of a junior mining company? Kind of a thankless job.
Yeah, it is. And it started, I started in the capital markets side of the business, probably 15, 17 years ago or so. And I was a broker at Raymond James and Canaccord, financing a number of these kind of junior resource investments, technology investments, so on. Being based in Vancouver, you see a lot of deal flow. And so, business was active. I transitioned to managing assets for the mining companies themselves. So, I grew pretty familiar with the industry as a whole, how companies were spending money, and then, where money was being best allocated. And sometimes, it was a little bit mismanaged. And so about 10 years into it or so, I kind of, saw the writing on the wall of what was happening in my business. So I was like, hey, time to make a change. So sold my business, moved into this space, joined up with a couple of great guys. Some of them you're familiar with, Robert. And then we, a couple of years in, we came up with this idea to go down to Idaho, and kind of the rest is history. And, as I was the guy that was managing it at the time, and had been taking it through. And then, it just started growing and growing and growing to the point where it is today. And, it was kind of my baby, and along with a couple of the other founders. And so, I was managing it the whole way through. So I stuck with it, and, kind of fell backwards into it, if you will, by accident. But also at the same time, I was kind of, the most suitable person for the job, just because I'm so familiar with the company now and the state in general. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Yeah. So tell us about the exploration work that IDEX has carried out in 2023 and 2024, and what has led up to this year in the Maiden program at Kismet.
Yeah, so the work so far is, started out in 2023. We snuck in a quick rock and soil sampling program after the Hercules discovery, and we beefed up our claims. And then the following summer, we got to work right away, doing more soil sampling, rock sampling, and then we actually conducted a geophysical survey with Diaz. So we did an IP survey, about 31 line kilometers or so, which covered the main core of what we now call the Cuddy Mine target. And so those geophysical, the IP signatures that came back gave us two large chargeability anomalies that actually underlie a large copper and soils anomaly at surface that we discovered from that soil and rock sampling program. So in 2024, we came up with that, which identified a couple of great drill targets. We applied for permits right away. And then the Idaho state auction process happened, and we ended up securing that land as well. Coincidentally, we actually originally, as part of that Idaho state claim package, we staked about 32 claims on that side, which gave us an exploration license. So we did conduct some initial work around the Kismet Breccia target to start. And as we did that, we came back the following year and, added on those claims. So now we had a very robust claim package. And starting this year now is, we're boots on the ground, getting back to it, soil and rock sampling, more geophysics, more drilling, and so on. But leading up to it, that's the work that we've done so far on the project.
So I just want to go back to something you said a bit earlier. You said the company has 15 projects. You have 3 in your corporate presentation, and obviously it appears that the sole focus is the Freeze project right now in 2025. So what's sort of the plan with all those other projects that are going on in the background?
Well, we want to use those projects to create non-dilutive cash flow for the company itself. We have done a few option deals. We've actually sold another property as well, and we're just searching for more option partners. So we're actually going to be rolling out an option-ready deck, if you will, and we'll have a section on our website dedicated to some of the projects, just to more project generation. And so folks can go on, interested parties that want to get to work in Idaho. Hey, here's a list of properties. Here's a list of elements that you can get involved with, and this is what we have. So, if we can keep that going and keep that non-dilutive cash flow going, I think it'd be very positive for us, because we don't have to go back to the market. And, it's beneficial for everybody if we can keep that dilution low. So that's the idea.
Okay. So that's very interesting. So that's sort of a value driver for the company that's in the background that you don't really talk about a whole lot.
Yeah, exactly. We don't talk about it a lot. We don't want people to get distracted. This is a freeze first project. Yeah, we have other, assets in behind it, but, we're all about freeze. But at the same time, we are good explorers. We are good at the generative work, and we've proven that so far. So, why not let others capitalize and the company capitalize on that as well, and, by doing those kind of deals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just final question prior to getting into the meat of the conversation about the Maiden drill program at Freeze and all the activity that's going on here in the second half of 2025. I just want to talk about the Go Public financing round that gave you the capital to be able to drill. So tell us about that round, the pricing of it, the total amount of proceeds, and maybe you could tell us about some of the important shareholders of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Go Public round was very exciting for us. It took a little bit longer than we had anticipated. We did, we came out with a higher valuation, and that was indicative of, just what's been happening in the district, in the area. And, the Freeze project itself is great. It's exceptional property, and we'll get into the, the land jurisdiction itself. But, that value is backstopped by the Freeze project and what they're finding in that area. So we raised $5 million at a $22 million, call it $21 million pre-money valuation. And we were able to get it done over a couple of months. We engaged Canaccord, Red Cloud, and Research Capital to lead the financing for us, and they did a great job. And then some of the larger institutional investors that came in were, it was led by, Will and Middlecoop wrote a lead order into the deal. So Commodity Discovery Fund, that was very exciting. We had Alpha North get involved, a couple other funds out east. And, from that financing, I'd say, the 5 million that we did, at least 4 million of it was institutional. So, 500,000 plus kind of tickets or orders. And then the rest was kind of backfilled with retail and our own network. But, it was good to see that big institutional focus come in right away. And that was exciting for us because they see what we're doing. There's merit to it. And, going forward, and you can kind of see how it's trading now as well, is that, all those folks that just invested are all sticking with us. They want to see what happens when we go through this exploration season. They want to see our drill results. They want to see the generative work that we do as we, explore this 31,000 acres. And it's a big land package, so it's going to take some time. But, the shareholders that we have right now are great. Some of those institutional guys, and then, the high net worth folks that supported us from the very beginning and kind of financed us all the way from the 5-cent round through to the 50-cent round and kept us going for, 2 or 3 years. Those guys are great shareholders as well. They see, apologies, they see everything that we're doing and the value that's there. And, nobody's selling yet. So it's a good thing. And we're actively creating more awareness for the company and bringing in more shareholders. So I think the whole exercise of the Go Public and the money raising process was really good, just for brand awareness alone and getting our name out there. It was great. We talked to everybody. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it usually is a lot of work to do that Go Public
Yes.
raise, because you have to make people well aware of the company and your vision for the company and what you're doing. And sometimes that takes a lot of meetings and a lot of Zoom calls. So you said in 2021 you decided that the state of Idaho was the place to be, sort of the place that you wanted to put your time and effort into. So tell us about the state of Idaho and why it's such a great place to explore.
Well, it's the state itself, and kind of the administration that's there right now is very pro mining. They're deregulating, and I believe you've written a couple articles on it as well. And they're doing a great job of promoting mining in Idaho. Idaho was founded on mining. It's called the Gem State, and it kind of mining left for 80 years, and now it's slowly coming back with a resurgence. And I think some of the delays in why, and the reason why Idaho hasn't been more developed is just mining codes and laws haven't been updated over the years. Technology hasn't been updated, so you're still doing physical hand staking. There's no centralized database for data at all, and it creates a barrier to entry for a lot of folks that would otherwise just jump on their keyboards and stake thousands of acres of ground from British Columbia or somewhere else in the world. So for us, that was great because we headed down, boots on the ground. We met with the local communities, all of our stakers, a lot of our technical guys. They're all from Idaho, so we're pretty integrated within the state itself. And then to take that to another level, the majority of our claim package at Freeze is Idaho state ground. And the state itself is very aligned with us to see the project be developed. All money that's generated from the lease itself goes to the Idaho School Board. So they're very aligned with us to see it move forward, see it move into a mine one day. And for those reasons, permitting down there is drastically reduced, where, you're on federal ground, you're looking anywhere from 6 to 18 months for a drill permit. On the state ground, you're looking at 30 to 60 days. When we applied for our drill permits that we just received a couple months ago, it was turned around pretty quick, like 30 days, and we got it done. And as we move through our drill program, if we want to make updates to our plan, we just, submit a quick notice or a phone call and, hey, this is what we're doing. This is our next plan. And we make updates. And as long as everything is done and paperwork or, set up correctly, then the state is happy and they want to see this move forward. So we meet with them quite a bit. We talk to them all the time. They're actually just out on site right now, just looking at final drill pads and things like that. So it's exciting.
Yeah, so that's a key point you just brought up. The key distinction between the Idaho state land and the federal Forest Service land. And that's something that's changing a bit here in 2025. The culture around permitting on the federal level is starting to change, and maybe we'll hear more about that in the near future. But the key thing to understand is on the state land in Idaho, the state wants you to do exploration work. They want you to, because that's how they generate funds and proceeds for the government in the future. And so if the company just sits on it, doesn't do anything, they don't like that. They actually want to see you drill. So they're motivated to give you that permit as long as you're doing it the right way.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we've had many conversations with them about that. And I think something like $100 million was put into the Idaho School Board just from these leases last year. So it's a big revenue generator for them. And for us, if we can make a discovery and this gets turned into a mine one day, I mean, it's, a huge land position with potentially, very, very, very large prospects.
All right, so let's talk about those large prospects. This is the part I really like to talk about, Clayton. So Maiden drill program is imminent based upon the news you put out last week. So talk to us about that. Talk to us about the Freeze property and where you're going to drill first.
Yeah, we're really excited about this first drill program. And so the Freeze project is separated into, two sections, I guess you could say. There's the U.S. Forest Service land, which were our original claims, and that comprises about 3,200 acres or so. And then there's the Idaho state land, which is about 28,000 acres. We're still working on our permits on the U.S. Forest Service side. So we expect to have those permits by probably September sometime. But as I just mentioned, we're fully permitted on the state ground. So we will start drilling on the state ground first. And where we've selected to target is the Kismet Breccia Pipe. It's a tourmaline breccia pipe that's outcropping its surface. And one of the reasons that brought us to this property to begin with, as I mentioned, not only those erosional windows, but there was a historical report that mentioned 4 historic drill holes with an average grade of 1.5% copper. And we have the log for one of those holes and the location of that hole. And that hole, and we've stated it a few times in our press releases, had a historical intercept of 41 meters at 0.85% copper. Within that, there was a 15-meter interval at 1.26% copper. And all that 41 meters was all from surface, so about 9 meters down. So we're right into the mineralized Triassic rock, right at surface. We're seeing copper right away. And that's what the historical logs say as well. So that is the high priority target. We have done a ton of soil and rock sampling around the Kismet Breccia Pipe. We have delineated a 500 by 500 copper and soil anomaly. We just completed an MT survey, as you mentioned, as well. We've received some initial data on that, so we can see what's underneath and what's at depth there and the structures that are controlling it all. And I'll say, initial results from that are very exciting and kind of confirms what we're thinking and confirms our, our first drill target and that we're doing it in the right place. So those first drilling will be at the Kismet Breccia Pipe. We're going to drill about 2,500 meters. We want to get the orientation of the breccia itself, but this is not a breccia story. We're using the breccia pipes to locate an intact porphyry at depth. And if we're lucky to do that on the first pass, I mean, that's fantastic, obviously, and away we go. Exploration is a lot more tricky than that, but to start, we'll use these breccia pipes to locate the porphyry. So we'll drill, a series of 4 or 5, call it 100 to 250 meter holes, get the orientation of the breccia itself. And we want, with the goal of, not only confirming the historical mineralization and the historic drill holes that were put out, but to also test for that deeper porphyry at depth.
So at Kismet, you're going to start kind of shallow, like 200 meters, to get a feel for the orientation of the pipe itself. But then I imagine once you have that, the first 2 or 3 holes can probably tell you that. Are you going to go deeper to try and tag into the porphyry?
100%, yeah. And so we'll use those first few holes to triangulate, and then we'll do one hole down to 500 or 600 meters and test to see what's down there. So that's the whole idea. So
that's super exciting, especially when a hole from the 1960s found copper 1.25 % copper grades near surface. The pipe is the unconsolidated rock that got exploded up from deep down. So typically what you find in the pipe near surface is giving you clues to what is at depth. So that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, it is. And it's in our presentation as well. And what happened with that historic hole is that the old timers, they drilled vertically. And what we've learned about the district itself from companies like Hercules and Scout is that the whole district is actually tilted northwest and dipping to the southeast. And so when the old timers drilled their vertical hole, they actually entered and exited the breccia pipe. So they went through the initial oxide zone, and then they actually tagged in the phyllic zone. They tagged into, where that higher grade mineralization was. And then they actually left the breccia pipe, and the hole ended in unaltered monzonite that was still grading 0.1% copper. So, which is also exciting in itself. But the whole thing is that they exited the phyllic zone before they got into the potassic center, and where the higher grade copper mineralization is there. So, and that hole ended about 127 meters down. So super shallow. And, and we just get the orientation a little couple degrees further to the east, we could be onto it and straight down the throat. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that is exciting. That's a good point about the 0.1% copper in the country rock. Essentially, that's far from the center of any porphyry. I mean, it could be very far away. You just don't know. So the fact that the country rock has that kind of background copper is very encouraging as to what the tenor of the heart of the system could be, and we're going to find out about that from drilling.
Exactly.
Something that some shareholders of Hercules and IDEX have asked me, and we've had conversations about, is the gold. Where's the gold in this area of Idaho? At Hercules, they got a lot of silver. They definitely have a lot of copper, but the gold is kind of, it's really low grade. It's not really there in their porphyry system, and at least not so far. Have you found any gold on the Freeze property?
We have found some high grade gold, and we actually discovered it on our initial exploration program in 2023. And so the gold right now is located specifically on our U.S. Forest Service claims around the Cuddy Mine target that we have there. And we grabbed about 12 rocks or so, and they were running anywhere from 10 grams a ton to 33 grams a ton gold. which was really exciting. And so we believe there what is happening is, kind of the porphyry model where you have the porphyry at depth and you have a tourmaline breccia pipe coming off, and that's where the Kismet zone is, or the Kismet target. And then off to the west, we have our, epithermal expressions where the gold is popping up. So it kind of it all coincides, and then you look at the geophysics as well. On top of that, it's all related in some way. Obviously, with drilling, we'll have to figure that out a little bit more. But yeah, the gold specifically is on the U.S. Forest Service side, which is on the western side of the property. That's where we're seeing it the most.
So on the Forest Service side, there's a separate target area with a prominent copper and soil anomaly, and you're also saying that there could be some gold there as well. So
yes,
what's the plan for that one in 2025?
Well, the plan for that is to get permitted, and we would like to drill there as well. As I mentioned earlier, we did an IP survey over the property. So originally, when we did our soil sampling, it was property wide. We collected about 3,000 soil and rock samples. It delineated a 1.5 by 2 kilometer copper and soil anomaly at surface. And then from the IP survey that we did, there's actually 2 large chargeability anomalies directly below that surface expression, and that is very exciting. So that presents 2 drill targets for us right there. It's almost like 2 bullseyes on a board. We're just gonna, it's in our presentation on our website as well. Plan drill holes just to go right through that and test to depth below the anomaly as well. And so that's the plan for that. We do need the permits first, as I mentioned, and we're working through that, and we're almost there.
Okay. So tell us about the property-wide exploration. So there's going to be a lot going on in the background, including mapping and sampling. And you just did an MT survey. So tell us about that, and what have you learned so far?
Yeah, so the MT survey itself, we did 27 stations, mostly focused right around the core of the project. So because the project is so big, we're focusing our efforts in the core and around the erosional windows, which right now are on the Forest Service around Cuddy Mine target and the Kismet target on the state side. So we're focusing around there. So our MT stations, about 20 of them, were focused right in the heart of that. And then we had some outlier stations around the rest of the property to give us a better glimpse to the subsurface. And what we saw so far is that there will be a press release coming out on this soon. It's very exciting. We do have some anomalies at depth. We are seeing some structures underneath the surface as well. And it all is kind of tying together is what we're finding right now. Obviously, it's very high level. And we'll dig into it more on another press release. But yeah, it's very exciting and kind of confirms everything that we've been thinking so far, and that it backs up the drilling that we want to do. And we're seeing structures that we definitely, and targets that we want to drill in the subsurface. So it's very exciting. And then property wide, we're boots on the ground right away. We've had guys down there since mid-June. We've already collected about 1,000 soil samples or so, and we're going to be doing comprehensive mapping. And so we did some infill sampling around the Kismet Breccia, and now we want to map the Kismet Breccia itself in more detail, even more detail than we already did, and then kind of build from there. There's a couple creeks that are going through the property, Olive Creek and Hornet Creek, and we want to, walk those streams, collect samples, just view the lithologies and the geology through that whole district, and then also, with the goal of identifying new prospective zones to go out and sample and create overlap grids, soil grids over those new zones that we find. And because we are seeing a lot of differences between the mapping that was done with the USGS or the Idaho GS and what we're actually seeing on the ground. So there are some differences. So we want to just continue to explore the property and identify those erosional windows, because that will be the easiest way to explore for the time being. And then, as we move through the project, we'll start attacking, some of these areas in the property that have the basalt cover, and, geophysics will be a good tool for that. And so we may do, after that initial MT survey we did, we may step out and do a couple other surveys around the other parts of the property to get more detail on those structures. And then we're also looking at doing another a ZTEM survey, just property wide. And so we want to do that as well.
all very important work, and that's exciting. Just how much work you guys are planning to do. 30,000 acre property package. I don't think a lot of investors really appreciate just how large of an area that is.
Yeah.
And you're a really early stage company, and so it's going to take a little bit of time to work through that entire 30,000 acres. So you got to pick and choose your spots along the way. Start in the areas where you know the most about, where you see they're the highest priority areas, and that's what you're doing at Kismet, which is a very, very exciting target by itself. So let's talk a little bit about the management team, Clayton. So who are some of the key members of the team?
Yeah, some key members of the team. Well, the keyest are geologists, the most key. Dave Lackey is our VP of exploration, and Dave's a great guy. He's been doing this for 25 plus years, all throughout North and South America. He's ran drill programs all over both continents, and he's an excellent geologist. He's one of the smartest guys I know. And, you ask any of the other young geologists around, it's, Dave knows what's going on. And if you have a question, Dave knows the answer. So we're lucky to have him. And he's been with the company for a few years now. And, he created a lot of the generative work that, we went out and initially staked and whatnot. So he's continued with that. And, he's excited to get back down to the property for the start of drilling as well. Another one of our key personnel is, I'm going to talk about the geologists first because they're very important. But Colin Ross is another one of our geologists. He's a great young guy, and again, very, very intelligent. Master's in economic geology with a focus on porphyries. So, he's our resident expert porphyry geologist. And, him and his team are on the ground right now in Idaho, actually getting to work and setting up for the initial program here, the drill program. Also on the team is Sharon Alexander. She's our VP Corporate Development. She actually joined us from Sun Summit Minerals. She was a president there for a time and then saw what we were doing in Idaho and wanted to get involved with us. So she's helping me out with marketing and corporate communications and, a lot of corporate communications down in Idaho as well. It's very important. So she's been a key member, and she's also the CEO of Nordique Resources right now, which is a Finnish gold project. Then our board, one of our founding members is Jonathan Dudney, and John has been here from the very beginning. It was me and him, rounding up the initial investor seed money and then getting to work at staking those initial targets. And John's been host of numerous M&A transactions, raising money for countless opportunities, and he's a great add on the board as well. Simon Diakowski is also on our board. Simon is a CEO of Aztec and GSP Resources. So Aztec's a silver explorer in Mexico and Arizona. And Simon's a great guy. He's been in the business for 15 years or so. His dad was a geologist. I believe his brother's a geologist. So it's in his family, and he knows what he's doing. And then Anne LaBelle rounds out the board, and Anne has been in the business for a long time. She was instrumental actually in Idaho itself and the original permitting at the Stibnite mine. So she kicked off back when it was Midas Gold before it became Perpetua. And she started the permitting process at Stibnite. So she's intimately involved and knowledgeable about Idaho's politics. She's also had a couple recent M&A exits. So she's very well seasoned. She's a geologist and a lawyer. So, we get both sides of it, technical and a little bit of that lawyer work as well, which is great. And so she's very important part of this puzzle as well. And then let's not forget I forgot our CFO, Eric Zung. Eric joins us. He's been a CFO for 25 plus years. And I actually worked with Eric, probably 15 years ago, back when I was a broker, and, we were managing a couple of his other treasury investments for other companies that he was working on. So when I came to this side of the business, I kind of, Eric was a great guy to work with, and one of the best CFOs out there with cross-border experience as well. So that rounds out the team. And and then obviously myself, I gave myself a little bit of a background there earlier, but I'm on the board as well, and been doing this for a while.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong team there at IDEX, including a lot of people with experience in the US. And I think Sharon Alexander is a very strong addition on the corp dev side. That was definitely a good get for
Yeah.
a relatively young company. I think that's a very strong management team that you've assembled, Clayton. So, final question. Investors want to know about news flow. So tell us anything you possibly can about what's the news flow going to look like in the second half of 2025. And then maybe just like, why buy the stock? I'll give you a few minutes to do the pitch.
Love it. Well, news flow, I want to keep the news going. And that is my mandate. And I guess now I'm on record saying that. So we got to do it. But I think communicating with the market is very important. So we want to continuously, especially here at the very beginning, we want to put out a lot of news. Everything that we're doing is really exciting to us. So anything that's exciting to me and the team, we want to share with the market. And so I'd like to say that we'll put out a press release every, at least every couple of weeks, maybe more if we can. And you'll see that, like, there's all sorts of news-driven results, starting, you'll see something later this week. But we're bringing the drills to site. We're going to start drilling. There's been already, some of our boots on the ground exploration. There's been a couple of discoveries made that we're going to announce to the market as well. Some exciting things that'll help us develop the project. We have our MT results. We, eventually we'll have our soil and rock sample results from all the infill sampling that we did. And then, we'll round it out sometime, I'd imagine, in late September with our drill results, which will be really exciting. So coming from now till then, it's going to be steady news flow. We're not going to go quiet. We're just going to keep working, keep putting out news, keeping the market informed so we can get ahead of anything. And if anybody ever has any questions, they're more than welcome to reach out to us, and we're always available. So that's very exciting. And then for the company itself, I mean, we're at a point now that we're through the private to go public process, which took some time. And, we're just every stage, we're de-risking this further. And we're kind of at that next stage now where we're coming up to the drilling. Drilling is imminent. It's going to be a smaller program, which means, we're going to drill test. We're going to get results to the lab, core to the lab right away, which means we'll get assays back right away. So any investors getting involved now, you're getting a pretty de-risk scenario where, it's going to be drill results are coming out. We're going to confirm historic mineralization. We know we can do that. And, that's the exciting part. We want to confirm what was there, but beat it as well. So that is our goal. And for investors getting in, I mean, this is the right price. It's only going to go up from here. And, we're excited to keep it going. And, Kismet is just also one target within a very large land package. And, we have the Kismet drill targets. We have multiple drill targets on the U.S. Forest Service ground as well. So, we have optionality in what we can do. If we're testing the breccias and that's not working out, we can move over to the Forest Service side and test those huge geophysical anomalies that that underlie that large surface anomaly. So, there's a lot of optionality, as we like to say. And, and then we're going to be exploring the rest of the property. So we've already made a couple new discoveries, and as we continue to move across, I'm sure we'll find some more. So it's very exciting. I'd be a buyer.
All right. Thank you, Clayton. This was a great introduction to IDEX Metals. Cheers.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it.